So I went to my first Elestrals Regional ever, and I was excited to get a chance to see the community come together. It was small, but the energy was big. Massive shout out to Sully's Abode for hosting it. But onto the regional experience itself, I had a great time. Really, I just wanted to take a deck that I was really having fun with recently, especially using Clash. And this is what I call Hestia Burn, essentially. This lets you use cards like Eruption and Krakatuga to be able to do burn damage. You can expend 2 Fire Spirits to force your opponent to expend 3 Spirits. The way I played this deck too is more of a control style, just like Goat Control in Goat format Yu-Gi-Oh! You're doing the usual damage to your opponent's spirits, and ultimately you want to put them at 0. But this has the added condition that you can win with a battle of attrition, thanks to using the burn cards, but also some recovery spirit effects as well that'll cover too. I'll cover the deck profile in like a packages style type of way, so that way you can kind of see the pieces coming together. So starting off with the burn aspect of it is 3 copies of Eruption. Being able to use this card mid to late game, especially if you have 2 copies available to you, you gotta actually really catch your opponent off guard to either win the game or put them at very low spirit count. So think about like 1-2 spirits at max. The reason that you want to do this because if you do Eruption too early on, then basically their Ambrasias become live at that point. So it's not necessarily the always win con that you want to go, but see it as you're gearing towards this to potentially close out a game. In addition to the burn damage package, we have Krakatuga. So this is a 2-spirit Elestral that you have to typically normal ascend into. There's actually cards such as like the Hestia Divine Ruin that makes this a lot easier even on turn 1. But if your opponent doesn't take care of this card ASAP, this is literally every single turn do an Eruption type of effect. It's got a nice defense too and a decent attack, but typically you want to have this as a body essentially, and then let your other Elestrals with better attack stat swing in for damage that way too. I've considered playing 3 in the main deck, but ultimately I put the 3rd one in the side deck. What you'll notice about this deck is that there's only so much you could special cast in this deck to be able to normal ascend. Hestia does help, but it's basically a 3-card combo too. So if you don't have all the right pieces and also being able to make sure that you're not interrupted can be very challenging. So I felt like the 2 is the sweet spot while still being able to benefit from this. Another part of the package essentially is 3 copies of Necroft. When this guy destroys an Elestral, your opponent has to expend a spirit from their deck. So this is a good 1-spirit Elestral that you just cast and be attacking. 5 is very respectable in Elestrals too. It actually gets over a lot of 1-spirit Elestrals too. This in the tournament came up multiple times, posing a threat for my opponent. In one of my matchups, it was key because I was able to re-enchant it with a 2nd spirit essentially, and then using Volcanic Forge, the Stadium Ruin, to power up 2 more attack to make it 7. It was able to crash one of the lunar Elestrals. I was able to crash in it, but it also forced them to expend a spirit. So you can crash into things that way and still make them expend another spirit too. So another package that's really 6 cards in total. It's 3 copies of Warma, Champion of Hestia, and then also 3 copies of Hestia's Hearth. And these go hand in hand. Essentially, this is more of like a spirit recovery type of combo, but also being able to get over threats pretty easily too. So whenever this receives a fire spirit, you could actually target an Elestral on the field and reduce its attack by 3 points. This triggers anytime when it receives it, so you can actually do this multiple times in a single turn as well. You notice that it has that synergy with Hestia's Hearth to be able to recover 2 spirits from the underworld back to your spirit deck. That's where the spirit recovery comes into place, while still benefiting of Hestia's Hearth, where it can actually just add spirits to Warmite, and Warmite essentially becomes 3 spirits enchanted wise. And because of the timing and the wording of this card, specifically with the then part, this triggers Warmite twice. You could choose -6 on Elestral or -3 onto 2 separate Elestrals. And since Hestia's Hearth is a counter ruin, technically you can't do it the same turn that you set it, but on your opponent's turn or the following turn, you can actually have some combo plays where if your opponent attacks into your Elestral, you can use this and target your Warmite and be able to essentially weaken that Elestral so that it loses to your Elestral. If they also attack Warmite, there might be more than likely there's a difference in spirits and your opponent can lose typically 2 spirits from the difference from 3 to 1 essentially. So more of the Hestia package essentially is 3 copies of the Divine Ruin. And so when you cast this, you ideally want to do multiples of 2. This will give you the ability to be able to special cast a 1 Fire Spirit Elestral from your hand to the field. This allows you to normal ascend much more easily with Krakatuga. You can also use cards such as like Warmite, Kinleo, and even Torchin to be able to get some type of benefit before you normal ascend into Krakatuga that way. This also lets you populate the field much more easier, especially if your opponent has 1 or 2 Elestrals. You can easily match their Elestrals that way too. So if you're like falling behind, this can be used as to catch up really quickly. All it cares is that your opponent has to have the same or more Elestral count than you do. So literally, if your opponent has 1 Elestral, you can even cast, let's say, a small Tuga, search the fire Elestral that you care about, use Hestia, and then special cast the fire Elestral that you just searched for too. And now all of a sudden you went from 0 to 2 Elestrals on board, and now you can put the pressure on them back. It's also worth noting that Hestia's Hearth works with this too. You could basically refuel Hestia to be able to special cast more in the future too. You could also do some plays just to have an extra spirit for Kinleo's Nexus effect. And in addition to the Hestia package, I played the Torch of Hestia and Torchin, Champion of Hestia. So essentially, Torchin, whenever it's casted, you can search for the Divine Ruin or the artifact. There will be times where you already have the Divine Ruin, so it's more beneficial maybe to get the artifact itself. The artifact is useful because it gives you a 2 buff, but it may not get over a lot of stuff, but it does have a foretell ability, so you can start stacking your deck, especially if you have the board stay pretty locked down. And then also you can Nexus it off with Kinleo if need to. That makes it a lot easier to use Kinleo when you do need it. I've considered increasing and taking out Torchin as well. However, it is a 1/1 Elestral, so it's pretty weak. This card can be replaceable, but it's another way to search for Hestia essentially too. I've considered other cards too, like Plucky too, that can search for it. The only thing is that Plucky, now you have to have a Solar Spirit to be able to use it. One of the best plays you could do is use Hestia to special cast Torchin, get the Torch of Hestia, and then normal ascent into Krakatuga immediately that way too. So it's still fodder for Krakatuga. Some of the staple fires is Lavalith and Kinleo. So Lavalith is great to be able to just pop your opponent's counter ruin while having a beater on the field, which is really useful. This came up too in my rounds too, and it actually posed a threat too. It was funny because I think actually one of them had one Lavalith crash into another Lavalith, which was against Justin with Bearbond. And then Kinleo also came up too, being able to pop things. This helped get rid of threats. This also helped me keep control too while dealing more damage by attacking. This came up against my Chronodile matchup, so basically they weren't able to build up a board to stay alive, and then Kinleo was just kind of like the cherry on top to be able to wipe the board and still be able to attack. I added a consistency package in terms of small Tuga, so this was really nice. You can search for any 1 fire spirit Elestral, so this can get you your Warmites, especially if you already have Hestia's Hearth. This can search for Necroth if you need a body to be able to start having more pressure that way. You can search for Kinleo, so that way you have it in hand, and if you do need to cast Kinleo in the future, you already have it. This can also search for pieces that you can use for Hestia, the Divine Ruin, to be able to special cast that way too, just like I already mentioned too. It's already a water Elestral, and this can be used to later normal ascend into Krakatuga as well. And it's a 5 defense. It's a great card that also is pretty good to open up if you're going first too. This helps you build advantage while having a good defense, essentially. And alongside with that is 3 copies of Ass Rabbit. And so Ass Rabbit is the same thing, big body, defensively, great for first turn. But what's really nice is that you check the top 3 and pick any card and add it to your hand. So this includes like your Hestia's Hearth if you already have the Warmite, Eruptions. So especially if you're digging into getting that card, there are scenarios where you are on the losing side and there's no way that you can actually just win with normal means. And so you may have a Ass Rabbit available to you, and you may risk it for the biscuit and search that top 3, and hopefully you find the Eruption to close out the game. This also helps you dig into counter ruins such as like your Gorgon's Gaze, your Shield of Achilles, and Nami, even your power cards such as like Resting on Your Laurels, Hurricane, just being able to set up really nicely, gaining advantage and having a body on board as well. Moving forward, I feel like this is still needed. You just have cards that are either like Eruption is great, but like only if you have other stuff going for you. So you need more than just the 1 card. And then Hestia's Hearth / Warmite is typically a 2-card combo that you want to maximize as much as you can in every game. For the rest of the deck, this is more just adding to it. And so Volcanic Forge, it powers up your Elestrals just because you have fire spirits. This pairs nicely with Warmite with accumulated spirits, especially after resolving Hestia's Hearth. All of a sudden your Warmite's just big beefy as a 6 if you already have 3 spirits on it. And then of course if you have like a Necroth, it's a 6. This also powers up your Krakatuga defensively to a 10, but also becomes a 5, so if you need to be more aggressive with it, you can. Resting on Your Laurels, because I feel like you want to get rid of cards too. I feel like you can easily get rid of 1 card per turn pretty easily, but if you need to get rid of 2 cards, this is where this can shine pretty quickly. Hurricane as well. This is a card, since I'm already playing Water Elestrals and also Thunder Elestrals, I'm already playing those spirits, so just having that 1 wind spirit to be able to use Hurricane is big, mainly because I noticed with this deck is that, again, you're pretty combo reliant, so you want to clear any back row that you don't know on your opponent's side. This is like a heavy storm for face downs, basically. And especially if you're going second, if your opponent sets up pretty well, especially if they use like Ass Rabbit to search for a counter ruin, and now they set like 2, it's really hard for you to do anything if they got the right cards, basically. Also, to protect your Krakatugas, your Warmites too, or your Necrofs too, so I felt like playing 2 with the small Tuga is actually a pretty good combination, since we are playing water spirits anyway. We have triple Embrasia. You're using 2 fire spirits every time you use Eruption or Krakatuga. This also lets you be greedy with the effect too. If you can do multiple effects of Eruption and Krakatuga, the better for you it is. Triple Gorgon's Gaze, negating effects is important, and just being able to stop things from even happening. 2 Shield of Achilles. So I've considered playing the 3rd one too, but the problem with Shield of Achilles is that it only activates when your opponent's Celestial attacks you. So if your opponent has effects that can remove counter ruins, this can easily get popped essentially too. So that's why I felt even Tsunami would have a better flexibility when it comes to that. You typically use 2 spirits total, or maybe 3 spirits depending on that too, but now the board is clear, or you got rid of a threat that you couldn't get rid of with cards like Warmite essentially. And then for the fire spirits, we are playing 12 fire spirits. I feel like you need to be more dominant in the fire element. Again, your Hestias uses 4 fire spirits too. You also use fire spirits to use Krakatuga, Eruption, and then of course you want fire spirits in the underworld, so you can use cards like Hestia's Hearth pretty efficiently, and also Warmite. To squeeze in, we are playing 5 water spirits. We play 3 small Tuga, 2 Krakatuga, and then 2 Tsunami, so this gave me a good balance too. And then of course it could be a disposable element, and also we do play Hurricane too, so that's also useful. 2 copies of Zaptor for the Thunder element. This is for your Ass Rabbits and also Hurricane. The chances of resolving 2 are the most likely case. If you ever resolve like a 3rd copy of something, more than likely you use Embrasia to recycle one of these, so that way you can still kind of get away with 2 and be able to maximize on those cards. And again, the last slot is the wind element because we use Hurricane, so we actually need that still. You could also just use this for like generic counter ruin stuff if you don't have a use for it. With matchups, I face Bear Bomb, I face Chronodile, and then also a Lunar Artemis based deck too. I expected Bear Bomb for sure, and also Blistrix essentially, and then also Zeus. It's a deck that I've seen being played by people too. I've also wouldn't be surprised if I saw Wind Aggro or even 5s as well. But ultimately, I felt really comfortable with this deck, and I really wanted to play this deck in action. It worked out pretty well. In that case, I went 2-1 technically. And I'm just excited for a live stream to have more Fire Elestral support too, and even some of the water stuff that potentially could be useful for this deck too. Let me know in the comments what you think too, and especially if you consider future techs for this deck. And if you're interested in more Elestrals content, check out this next video. Bye!